Jessica Morden.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow my honourable friend, the member for Neath, and her wonderful tribute to Howell Francis, who I know we all miss in this place, and our love to Maya. And it's also a pleasure to take part in this annual St David's Day debate, so ably led by my honourable friend from Caerphilly, whose wise words, contributions, sage advice and friendship I know we will all miss following his announcement he'll not contest the next election. There's a while to go yet, but we will miss him when the time comes. Proceedings in Parliament this week are obviously dominated by events in Ukraine, and all our thoughts are with the Ukrainian people in these very dark times. That was demonstrated yesterday in the Chamber by the reception for the Ukrainian ambassador, one of the most moving moments certainly I've ever felt in this Chamber in my time in this House. And as my honourable friend for Cardiff West said, there are long-standing ties between the people of Wales and Ukraine. The Ukrainian city of Donetsk, originally known, as he said, as Hughesovka, was founded by Welshman John Hughes, who made his reputation and his fortune, indeed, as a leading engineer at Askside Engineering in Newport. And of course, coal mining and steel production have played just as important role in the economic and the cultural life of central and eastern Ukraine as they have in South Wales. And we are all united in our solidarity. And as my honourable friend for Caerphilly said, the scale is enormous and horrific, and our contributions reflect that. Like other honourable members, I have constituents with friends and family in Ukraine, and at least one constituent at the moment currently stuck in the country, having to travel there to care for dependents before the invasion began. In her case, family members had previously been refused a visa application for entry to the UK last year by the Home Office, and I just hope everything now will be done to ensure that visas for Ukrainians looking to flee the conflict can be processed swiftly, and that a robust system to reunite Ukrainians with family members here in the UK is put in place promptly. I note the announcements this week, but I really pray that action is swift. The family I've just mentioned have been told by a Home Office advisor they should be eligible, but they now tell me there may be no safe passage out from Zaporizhia, which is surrounded by Russian forces. We've seen with the failures in the Afghan resettlement scheme how not having comprehensive and compassionate structures in place can have real consequences. And I'm really grateful, as my honourable friend from Cardiff West mentioned, that the Welsh Government for voicing their strong support for Ukrainian refugees with sanctuary in Wales, and by providing that £4 million in financial and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. We are a nation of sanctuary and a nation of compassion. That's something that's demonstrated already by groups and individuals across Wales who are already doing what they can to support Ukraine. Groups like the Polish Community for Ukraine and the Women of Newport, including my constituent Camilla, have been overwhelmed with support to their emergency appeal just this week. And I know that Newportonians in Prague are raising donations in Newport for refugees on the ground there. I'm also grateful to constituents from Newport East who have donated to the DEC Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, and I know we all hope the government can now ensure that that money reaches those who have fled their homes to escape the conflict as quickly as possible. And of course, it will again be our councils, it will fall to our councils who are on the front line to welcome those fleeing from Ukraine. And I would ask the Secretary of State today to make sure that the UK government ensures, working with the Welsh government, they have the financial means not just to welcome them, but to support them too. Today's debate comes at a time when we are looking to the future after the pandemic, and that was clearly not the case on St David's Day in 2020, and 2 years on from the devastation of the first wave of COVID in March 2020, it feels like a good time to take stock and to thank all those in Newport East and beyond who've helped us get where we are now. The many community groups, the charities, the volunteers on the ground who help keep people connected and very supported during the darkest hours of the pandemic. And also our local councils who kept key services running as smoothly as possible in unprecedented times. In Newport East, that's through Newport Council and Monmouthshire Council. And we should not forget or underestimate how difficult that was. I remember those conversations at the start of the pandemic, the scenarios that were being anticipated, the very difficult decisions being considered. It was leadership at one of our hardest times, and I certainly always will be thankful to those who step up and are willing to hold those positions at those times. And as my honourable friend the Tadr T said, our councils play a pivotal role right on the front line. I know we all know this, front line of delivering our services, be it the schools our children attend, care for the elderly, keeping the roads safe, waste collection, recycling, services, parks, sports facilities and more. And it's our councils who are the key and who are looking ahead with ambition for a much brighter future after the pandemic. Labour-led Newport Council, very ably led by Councillor Jane Mudd, spent the pandemic, amongst many other things, distributing more than 9,000 laptops and devices to pupils, administering nearly £55 million of Welsh Government funding to Newport businesses to support them through the pandemic, including grants which supported over 70 new start-ups, new businesses and targeted support for sectors like the arts and leisure. Newport Council is, I think, a leader in many ways. We are the UK's best city for recycling. We are Employer of the Year at the Welsh Veterans Awards, a hub for sports with the National Velodrome for Wales, with the Football Association of Wales's Dragon Park, and the major event venues in our city too. They're all world-class facilities on our doorstep. And with our future plans, including a new leisure centre, Newport Market, soon to open again the largest indoor market refurb in Europe, a new four-star hotel, all over the river in my honourable friend, the member for Newport West's constituency, as well as lots of modern new housing developments in the city centre. This is all in the plan for the regeneration of our city. Monmouthshire County Council also deserves praise for their work supporting vulnerable residents and bringing people together during the pandemic. And a great example of this was my meeting of Monmouthshire Youth Council last week, who came to Parliament and who provided throughout the pandemic a regular virtual forum for young people to discuss the issues that matter most to them at a time when schools, colleges and social activities were restricted. And being the mother of two teenagers myself, I very much appreciate the work that people like Jade Atkins, their participation officer, who convenes the group, put into that work and the real difference it can make. Last year, other honourable members have mentioned the levelling up, but last year I also worked closely with Monmouthshire Council on the cross-party bid for levelling up in funding for Caldecott, and it's a real shame that this strong bid for improvements to the leisure centre and the town centre were rejected by the UK Government, as indeed were all bids from the Gwent area. And I hope that these future tranches of levelling up will be more inclusive of all regions of Wales, or the accusations of pork barrel politics may ring true again. And may I note on behalf of the wonderful and dedicated volunteers at Mega Action Group on Rail, who have a bid in for a new walkway station for Mega and Undy, just mention to the Secretary of State that their bid for their Restoring Your Railway bid is in at the moment, and we would appreciate if he could nudge his colleagues in that department for an update on the next steps. That would be much appreciated, as well as taking the lead following the Burns Commission to provide the funding to reverse the historic underinvestment in rail in Wales by investing in new lines and new stations, and we are watching very keenly on that. I also want to pay tribute to the work of the Labour Group on Monmouthshire Council, who have combined constructive opposition to the administration and continued to campaign for better services across the county and improved infrastructure in areas like Sevenside in my constituency to match the rapid growth in house building we've seen locally. It's important after the up-and-coming local elections in May that Monmouthshire Council, which this year received the highest increase in its core funding settlement of any local authority in Wales from the Welsh Government, now prioritises this investment where it is needed most. We need to invest in infrastructure where we are building new house developments. So I would cheekily like to take the opportunity to wish all candidates standing in Newport East the very best of luck for May the 5th. I'm really proud of the candidates that Labour has chosen in Newport and in Monmouthshire wards in my constituency. They are a very enthusiastic, talented cross-section of our community. We have a firefighter, a brewery worker, a nurse, a journalist, a taxi driver, a lecturer, small business owners, all hoping to be given the privilege of serving their communities. The benefits, my honourable friend Netley spoke about the benefits of the strong collaboration between our councils and Welsh local government, and that should never be underestimated. Wales led the way on the vaccine rollout across the UK and maintained the most generous, comprehensive package of support for businesses of any UK nation. Now, as we look beyond the pandemic, the Welsh Government has come up with the £330 million package of extra help for the cost of living crisis, a funding package that yet again is significantly larger than the equivalent support provided by the UK Government in England. Of course, there's only so much a Welsh Government and a UK Government and local government can do with the powers afforded to them. And this is true for the steel industry in Newport, where the UK Government needs to provide our steel industry with the support it needs on decarbonisation and on electricity costs, something we've talked in this House. There are other members of the steel group here for over a decade. And funding for our police, which has been cut by this soft-on-crime Tory government over the last decade. And on the cost of living, the party opposite needs to acknowledge the part that they've played in enabling this crisis. It was the government that failed to regulate the energy market, failed to invest in homegrown renewables, and failed to end our dependence on imported energy, then cranked up national insurance contribution while cutting universal credit, and then responded to the lifting of the energy price cap by marching its MPs through the lobbies to vote down Labour's motion to cut VAT on household energy bills with a windfall tax. I highlighted this in my Westminster Hall debate last week, and the cost of living crisis in Wales and across the UK is now very real, and it is pronounced for businesses as well as households. That's especially true for industries like hospitality, which were already dealing with the shockwaves of the pandemic. Hospitality means around 3.6 billion to the Welsh economy each year. It's a major contribution. And pre-pandemic, the industry trade body, UK Hospitality Cymru, reported the sector employed 180,000 people in Wales, around 140,000 directly and 40,000 in the supply chain. And the challenges that sector faces are multifaceted, from energy costs to recruitment, which is currently at an all-time low. Representatives from local hospitality businesses tell me the sector now needs greater support from the government with its efforts to recruit and retain staff as the recovery opens up as the economy. The sector in Wales also wants to discuss issues around the scheduled increase in VAT in April, which UK hospitality suggests could lead to price inflation of around 12.4%, compounding other supply chain cost pressures. And I do hope finally, the government can work with the hospitality sector in Wales as it now looks to recover the confidence which has been lost over the last 2 challenging years.